Some stories end with hope, others end with heartbreak. This one gives you both. On a bitter Christmas Eve in St. Petersburg, while the city celebrated with warmth and laughter, one little boy wandered alone into the freezing night, never knowing it would be his last Christmas on Earth. Only hours earlier, the child had awakened beneath the streets, inside a damp cellar where winter crept through every crack. Wrapped in torn clothes far too thin for the season, he sat trembling, watching his own breath drift into the frozen air as if it were the only thing still alive beside him. On a bed no thicker than a bundle of rags lay his mother, too weak to speak, too weak even to open her eyes. Again and again, the little boy called to her, hoping she would wake, never understanding that hunger and sickness had already carried her far beyond his reach. He reached for her hand, expecting warmth, but found only ice. Confused, he touched her again, then whispered the only word that still gave him hope, "Mama," but the room answered with silence. The little boy pulled his worn coat tightly around himself. There was nothing left for him in the cellar, no warm fire, no bread, no voice calling his name. Gathering what little courage he had, he climbed the narrow steps and stepped into the frozen streets of St. Petersburg, where Christmas Eve had transformed the city into a world that seemed to belong to everyone, except him. Every street glowed with warm light. Families hurried through the snow carrying gifts, while cheerful voices spilled from brightly lit homes. The city welcomed Christmas with open arms, yet no one noticed the lonely child wandering among them. The sweet smell of fresh bread drifted into the icy air. The little boy stopped without thinking. His empty stomach ached, but he did not beg. He simply stood there, staring through the glass, wondering what it must feel like to eat until hunger disappeared. Then something caught his eye. Behind a great shining window stood the most beautiful Christmas tree he had ever seen. Candles flickered among its branches like tiny stars. Around it, children laughed, danced, and unwrapped gifts with smiles so effortless that the little boy could only watch in silent wonder. For just a moment, he forgot how cold he was. He stood there without moving. The children's laughter echoed through the glass like a distant dream. Their faces glowed with happiness, their hands filled with gifts, while his own tiny fingers had grown numb from the cold. He wasn't jealous. He simply wondered if anyone had ever waited for him with that same kind of love. At last, someone noticed him. A gentle woman stepped outside, looked into the frightened eyes of the little stranger, and quietly placed a small coin into his freezing hand. It wasn't much, but to the hungry child, it felt like the first kindness he had received all night. His frozen fingers could no longer hold it. The little coin slipped away, disappearing beneath the fresh snow before he even realized it was gone. He searched desperately, brushing aside the snow with trembling hands, but Christmas gave him no answer. The little boy stopped, too frightened to understand what had just happened. His cap lay forgotten in the snow, while the rough boy disappeared into the crowd without looking back. Around him, Christmas carried on as though nothing had happened. The lights still shone brightly, the laughter still filled the streets, but to the frightened child, the city had suddenly become colder than ever. Exhausted, cold, and with nowhere left to go, the little boy slipped beneath an archway into a silent courtyard. Behind a pile of firewood, hidden from the wind and the passing crowds, he curled into a tiny ball. It wasn't warm, but it was the closest thing to shelter he could find. His little hands no longer hurt, his feet no longer ached. A strange warmth slowly wrapped around him, and for the first time that night, he wasn't afraid. Smiling faintly, he whispered to himself, "I'll only rest for a little while, then I'll go back and see the beautiful Christmas tree again." And with that gentle thought, his tired eyes slowly closed. Then, through the silence, he heard the sweetest voice he had ever known.
"Come with me, little one. Come and see my Christmas tree."
The little boy opened his eyes, not to the bitter winter night, but to a light more beautiful than anything he had ever imagined. Before him stood the most beautiful Christmas tree he had ever seen. Its branches shimmered with countless candles, golden stars, and crystal lights that glowed brighter than the sun, yet filled his heart with peace instead of fear. Around it danced children whose faces shone with happiness. None of them were cold, none of them were hungry. They welcomed him as though they had been waiting for him all along. Then, through the golden light, he saw someone he thought he had lost forever. His mother stood smiling, no longer weak or suffering. She opened her arms, and the little boy ran into them without hesitation. At last, they were together again. Around them stood many other children, each with a story of hardship, each now wrapped in peace. They had all suffered upon the earth, yet here they were welcomed with love, and among them stood Christ, blessing every child with gentle hands. No one would ever know hunger, fear, or loneliness again. When morning came, the caretaker found the little boy lying quietly beneath the pile of firewood, his tiny body still and covered with snow. His mother had died before him, and now, at last, they were together again in the Lord's house. Such was the Little Orphan's Christmas. Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote this story to remind us that, while Christmas fills many homes with light, there are still children who face hunger, loneliness, and despair. May we never look away from those who need kindness the most.